Welcome to Office Hours for this week on our discussion of court politics and institutional tensions using Western Han as an example. And I'm here with Tiffany Wong, whose Chinese name is Huang Hui Han. And Tiffany, you actually studied Chinese history, didn't you?
Yes, as an undergraduate.
As an undergraduate, where?
At Berkeley.
At Berkeley, where's that?
In California.
Oh, I've heard of Berkeley, yes, of course, yes. Yeah. It's sort of like the Harvard of California, we could say. So, what do we have news for this week? How about Chinese translations of the course?
So we're really excited to share translations by Shi Tao. He has generously provided them to us, which will be a great opportunity for both those who want to learn Chinese and those who want to learn English.
Okay, good.
And they should be online now.
Okay, great. Thank you, Shi Tao. Thank you very much. We've been doing this for a while and we really are impressed by your work.
A lot of learners also mentioned that they want to learn Chinese through this course. Is there anything we can do about that?
Not at the moment. We actually are very interested in this question. This isn't a language course, and it's very hard for us to divert our efforts, which it takes a lot of time to produce these modules, as you can imagine. What we've decided to do, however, is in the coming year, we want to expand the number of modules and sort of mini courses we offer under China X. And you have lots of choices to make. But we're thinking of doing one of them that's going to introduce you to the basics of modern spoken Chinese, and one of them that will introduce you to the basics of what we call literary Chinese, the kind of the language in which the philosophers wrote, the language in which poetry was written, and so on. And we'll draw on some Harvard faculty to help do that with you. But this will take a while to get on. And eventually, who knows, maybe we will be able to offer a full language course in Chinese through China X. Let's turn to Yuwen, who's gone off and left us to go finish her dissertation in Taiwan. She did a short on the Wu Jing, on the 5 classics, right?
Yes, and it's under section 10 and the last module.
And it's very sweet. Don't you think?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Really
This is what the Chinese call Mai Meng. Yeah. Oh, one other thing that I should mention is we showed you some things from our in-class discussion here at Harvard with our students who were, on one hand, watching the modules online, but then discussing it in class. And I'd say around 70–80% of you thought that was a great idea, and some of you said, nah. Well, look, it's optional. For those of you who find this interesting, we'll try to include videos of the in-class discussion sometimes. But if you don't want to look at it, don't. Okay? Good. Let's turn to our discussion for the week. There seems to be a correlation between the difficulty of the discussion forum and the number of people who participate. But Tiffany tells me that this week we've been very happy to see that lots of people are really paying attention to each other and responding. And we have a lot of long posts. And of course, we're going to show them to you as we mention them. The question we asked was this: to look at a number of very important events in the history of the Western Han, and to see whether these could be talked about in terms of court politics or institutional tensions, the kind of institutional tensions we've been talking about in the lecture. Let's begin then with the story of Empress Lu, who, the wife of Gaozong, who then, when Gaozong dies, Gaozong, the founding emperor, Empress Lu sort of tries to take over. What do people have to say?
And that it is mostly an inner court conflict, as Joanne Norris mentioned, because she was not able to establish a stable system. It couldn't survive.
Mm-hmm. So she's really an inner court operator. Anna 09 says something similar, right? That this was basically an inner court conflict, but that she needed to have some support in the outer court as well to pull this off.
Yes.
Okay. Other views of Empress Lu?
Roger James. During this period, she could also be considered as contributing to the balance between the center and the regions, and between civil and military, as well as between the inner and outer courts. So she's actually a player in the institutional tensions discussed in the lecture.
Oh, so he sees her as actually trying to mediate between these. Okay, I would have appreciated a little bit more some more examples of that, because I had always thought of Empress Liu really as being a power grabber, right? But maybe not.
Another historical event we asked you to look at was the fall of Qin.
We had lots of responses to this. One of the constant themes, and I see that in Vijaya Ji and Carolina Han, is that Qin was a centralizing, militarily dominant, at the expense of civil interests sort of place, and that actually had a lot to do with Qin's downfall. I think that if I look at De Vriend gives a rather long post on this, and I think he makes the interesting point that although it's true that institutional conflicts are more convincing, one should not underestimate the court politics problems under the Second Emperor, who is a bit crazy, it seems to me. So I think that's right. Now, we have one of the more interesting events, I think, in Han was the rebellion of 154 BC. So what happens is that, I guess this is under Emperor Jing, right? That princes have been given sort of kingdoms in the eastern part of the country, as you saw on the map, and now they want to make sure that their families stay in control. And the emperor, the Han Emperor in the west and the northwest now moves against them. We have a civil war, in essence, which the Han Emperor wins, right? How do people understand that?
A lot of people, such as Cece from the East, believe that it's fundamentally between the feudal lords and a centralized Han Emperor who wants
so it's
control.
center versus region,
Right.
feudal versus bureaucratic sort of tension.
Right.
Start there.
Jorgen 45 makes a really interesting point. He mentions that perhaps even without the chessboard story, and if no personal feuds existed, it's probably likely that the Civil War might have happened anyway.
I think that's right. I think MacLu offers a similar sort of assessment that, that story of the fight over the chessboard or the Liubo board is sort of a red herring for a necessary institutional conflict. Pat Pharma has an interesting comment as well, right?
Even though there is a large clash between centralism and regionalism, that doesn't mean that other tensions were not also at play, including court politics.
Well, we had a lot of fun reading your posts, thinking about them. Thank you very much, Tiffany.
Thank you.
But I'd actually propose that you do one more thing. I've always found it useful to take these tensions between center and region, bureaucratic, feudal, and so on, civil, military, and see if we can use them to understand our own countries today. I certainly see this all over the United States, which is a country where you have states and you have real regionalism involved, where we have presidents who come from the same family, right? They're not quite dynasties, but there's clearly an inner court, right? Versus, let's say, the Congress, which might be called the outer court. So it's worthwhile thinking we need, one of the things we need to do is to use history as not just to understand the present of that country, of China, but to use what we learn from history to understand ourselves as well. Last thing I should mention, Jonathan Haber, who has a wonderful blog called Degree of Freedom, and we'll be posting a link for you, has been a very thoughtful reviewer of these massive open online courses, of which this is one. And he did a very thoughtful, I think pretty complimentary review of China X, and take a look and respond to it, okay? See you next week.